I'm a big fan of scary Sonic the Hedgehog fan games. Call it a guilty pleasure or a hyperfixation or whatever. I enjoy the genre. From your sonic.exes to your pen drives to your new beginnings, there's a ton of Sonic horror and creepypasta games floating around there. But take a second to think about every Sonic horror game that you may know about. What do they all have in common? Besides the fact that whenever Robotnik appears, I kick up my feet and giggle like a schoolgirl, they're all mostly 2D platformers. Now, I'm not saying that all Sonic horror games are 2D platformers. In fact, one of my favorite ones is a 3D survival puzzle game. I'm just saying that at least 90% of them are all from the exact same genre, sometimes even so simplified within that genre that it's barely a game anymore. So whenever a Sonic horror game isn't a 2D platformer, I tend to take notice regardless of quality. Sonic Splatterhouse by Mystical Mist is a Splatterhouse-inspired beat-em-up. Sonic Redimensions by Boxboy is a 3D adventure game. Sonic Old.exe by AY is pure salvation on my Acer monitor. And one other genre that you rarely see tackled in the scary Sonic scene is the genre of multiplayer. But I don't really blame the community for that. I mean, how many people want to run around with their friends playing as this image? Don't raise your hand. Sonic.exe multiplayer games, or Sonic horror multiplayer games, are things that exist. Sure, there's not that many in existence, but the few that I'm aware of are genuinely well made. The idea is right there after all. You've got a killer, you've got victims with superpowers. Go make a better version of Dead by Daylight. Practically every multiplayer Sonic.exe game is asymmetrical horror. This means that one player is the overpowered hunter, or in this case an evil Sonic, and the others are trying to survive as underpowered characters, aka every other Sonic pal. I've actually discussed one of these asymmetrical horror games before, with one of the earliest Sonic titles, Sonic.exe The Disaster by Outlike. This was a game made in Roblox where one person was a scary Sonic character, and the others were Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Sally, etc. There were fun abilities both the survivors and killers had, unique stages calling back to Sonic.exe's past and present. Truly a cool multiplayer Sonic experience. Take note of the words I'm using though, like was or were, because this game was murdered harder than my Bark the Polar Bear cosplay. Because I'm absolutely killing this fit. Unfortunately, Sega took down The Disaster, and Outlike moved on from the project and on to other things. There were multiple fan revivals and alternate versions of the game made afterwards, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I already reviewed The Disaster a few years ago. I've said what I needed to about these blockheads. No, instead, I've got 3 other Sonic horror multiplayer games that I want to delve into, all of which are strangely some of the best creepypasta games I've ever played. Well, maybe strangely isn't the right word, but it's crazy that all 3 ended up being great. So without further ado, let's dive our way into the vast, expansive world of the only 3 Sonic.exe multiplayer games that I was able to find.
These guys are tough. In order to beat them, I'll have to become Sonic.
EXE.
Starting us off, created by Team EXE Empire, Sonic.exe The Disaster 2D Remake is exactly what it sounds like. A 2D remake of Sonic.exe The Disaster. This game is probably one of the most popular Sonic horror games to date. I mean, it's got 2.2 million views on GameJolt. If you use GameJolt, you know that's a crazy amount for a fan game that's not FNAF. I mean, that's more than Baldi's, Eyes, my personal hero Nightblights. It's clear that there's a huge fan base behind this game, or at least there was, with a ton of content and mods and so much more. But is this game really worth all this hype? Is it even good at all? There's truly only one way to find out. By not forming my own opinion and just mimicking what I see online, Sonic Racer 1991 says that they can't play this game on iOS. This game f***ing sucks! Disaster 2D immediately hits it out of the park on presentation. There's a fully fleshed out menu, great looking sprite art, and corpse party music blaring in the background. Oh, that dog of mine. There's quite a bit to explore before joining one of the lobbies. Of course, you got your standard options, but there's also more fun things like extras and the About tab. The About tab gives you a play-by-play on each character's mechanics and playstyles, while also showcasing the really nice 2D art. It feels a little weird that they're all missing their mouths, and also the fact that Amy only uses her modern design, but overall I like them. They also show where each Sonic comes from, which is a nice little detail. It reminds me of when Smash trophies would have like which games the character comes from underneath the trophy. As for the Extras tab, it holds various achievements, a shop, and other customizable stuff. But you don't want to hear about how you can make Tails blue. You want to hear about the game, and you will! As soon as I get into one. Yeah, for some reason, clicking on these little quick join icons just did nothing for me. It's not like the game's dead, I can join via IP. It's just strange that these are kinda useless. Maybe it's just a me thing though, I don't know. Getting into the game itself, it's structured exactly like the original Roblox game. One character takes control of an evil Sonic, and up to 6 other players take control of other characters. Sonic needs to kill the players before time runs out. The players need to defend and survive until they can escape through a giant ring. Each survivor plays differently, has passive skills, and utilizes different mechanics. Tails can glide and shoot his arm cannon, Robotnik has more defensive abilities along with a motion sensor, while Cream is more of a support character. Of course, we can't forget about the 4 fellas. Each Sonic also has different abilities, even though they all look the exact same for the most part. X, or sonic.exe, can go invisible and track others. Exceller can clone himself and teleport. Exeshir has different attacks on top of this evil ring of doom that damages survivors. And lastly, there's Chaos, who can turn into water and is the fastest. The absolute coolest part of all of the characters, both survivors and killers, is that they reference all corners of Sonic.exe. Eggman's jetpack boost is a reference to the game Sonic.exe Spirits of Hell. 3 of the killers are just characters from other games. And yes, I'm realizing that there's a version of Sonic where it's just Chaos from Sonic Adventure, meaning that my Sonic horror game video from this summer is outdated. Ugh, the Chaos diehards are gonna have my head for this. Not to mention that when a survivor dies, they'll be turned into a minion and can help the killer pick off the remaining survivors. These designs come from various appearances from Sonic horror games in the past. Super cool stuff. And if we're still talking love letters to Sonic horror fans, the stages are without a doubt the loveliest letters to be written. There are a ton of maps in this game, each a location from a pre-existing Sonic horror game. It's mostly places from games prior to the 2020s, but as an out-of-touch old man when it comes to Sonic.exe games, this is my shit. You're telling me they have a Sonic Fear 3 stage? God damn, this is what I'm talking about. Other asymmetrical horror games can suck it. I don't see them mentioning evil Metal Sonic. But not only are they levels from old Sonic horror games, but each stage has unique mechanics, gimmicks, and overall madness. This level, based on the infamous Eggman staircase, gets more complex and darker as you work your way down. Haunting Dream from the game Tails' Nightmare has hidden passages and similar obstacles to the game it was referencing. But my favorite one by far is Act 9, a dark level with slowly closing in walls that's a reference to Chinolin's Sonic and, by proxy, Sally.exe. Everyone's a silhouette, the map shrinks as the timer goes on, it just delves into insanity by the end, and I love it. Now, you probably have a good idea of how this game functions by now, but what about that 1/14 of the title that makes this game so unique? The biggest difference Disaster 2D has, compared to other Sonic multiplayer horror games, no, asymmetrical horror games in general, is the 2D nature of it. Now, it doesn't change things drastically, but there's a few things that I noticed. For one, I think it definitely led to better stages. These feel so much more fleshed out compared to the original game on Roblox, or even the next game I'll talk about, Outcome Memories. I mean, there's way less room you have to fill in a 2D game. Sure, the stages are huge, but it's a lot easier to add cool and wacky gimmicks to a flat 2D stage rather than a 3D arena. But a symptom of this is that it's a lot easier to take damage on these stages. When you're running away frantically in a 3D asymmetrical horror game, you can pretty much see where you're going. It's a lot less likely that you're going to run into a stage hazard. But in a game where you're in a big 2D battle zone full of lava pit spikes and chuckles over here, and you're only able to see a few feet to the left or right, you're bound to take damage way more. Sure, you could take some hits and be revived once, but I saw my teammates absolutely drop during some games. And yes, maybe I was one of those teammates at times. And that about sums up my thoughts on Sonic.exe, the Disaster 2D. It's definitely tailor-made for Sonic horror fans, and honestly, a pretty cool multiplayer 16-bit experience. You know, I think they got those 16 bits from the 16 bits of code that hold this game together. Okay, I may be exaggerating, but it does appear as if this game is a bit wonky at times. It took a while for me to get into any servers. I've seen a lot of people have technical and server connecting issues, and no matter how many achievements I got, I didn't have any of them done. Once again, maybe it was something on my end, but damn it, I wanted to customize my Eggman. You can't be too harsh about these things though. You have to remember that this is a small team of developers working for free with their own free time so that you can bounce around in hell as Sally Acorns. The only way to do that before this game was to die. Disaster 2D is potentially one of the best EXE games, because it really isn't a regular EXE game. But it also is, but it's got the title, so you know what, I count it. Sure, I don't think I could play this for hours on end, but the presentation, the fan service, the gameplay, even the menu are all very well made and enjoyable. Sure, it's a little buggy and even broken at times, but for a free multiplayer game that's already a few years old, with this many people playing it, it does a solid job. I've got zero clue if this game is done or not, but I'd like to maybe see some original content if it's not. I feel like the game's done a good job at referencing and adapting older material. Maybe take a stab at your own stuff. I'll get you started. Okay, so first off, I'm thinking an evil Sonic who has the ability to, like, make you see the consequences of your actions, pretty much, something like that. So like the outcomes, you could say. And then, they make you revisit your worst memories possible. That'd be so messed up. So, maybe as a name, I don't know, Outcome Memories? Released on July 25th of 2025 and owned by Sabi, Outcome Memories is yet another Roblox asymmetrical horror game based on Sonic.exe and other Sonic horror projects. Don't get it mistaken, it's not a remake to the Disaster like 2D was, or even a successor. Outcome Memories is doing its own thing, and goddamn has it been working. I haven't seen a Sonic horror game get attention like this in forever. It's to the point that I'm seeing non-EXE fans talk and play this. They never play things like this, especially regular Sonic fans. They fucking hate us. I mean, as of writing this, the game has 20,000 plus players. That is insane. I know asymmetrical horror is really popular on Roblox, but still, seeing this as a Sonic horror fan, I love seeing it succeed. Not to mention that whole solo survivor trend on social media that broke past the game's audience, but I'll mention that later on. But first, what is Outcome Memories exactly? Well, one character takes control of an evil Sonic, and up to 6 other players take control of other characters. Sonic needs to kill the players need to defend and survive until they can escape through a giant ring. I think I've heard of that before. Oh, Dragon Ball: The Breakers! Yes, this game has a similar gameplay loop to other multiplayer Sonic.exe games, but there's so many differences and other aspects that makes this game its own. Let's start with the lobby. It's a lobby alright. It doesn't really need to be much because of how fast you go from lobby to game, but I'm glad they put some effort into it. And of course there's the standard settings in AFK mode, but you also have a pretty expansive shop to explore. Here you can buy accessories, alt colors, whole skins, emotes, and eventually more characters, I think. There's only one killer as of writing this video, and it says he's free, so that leads me to believe the others will cost Sonic doubloons. Anyways, the customization in this game is incredible. Ever play a multiplayer game with cosmetics, and then most of them just suck or are way too subtle? Yeah, in Outcome Memories you can just straight up turn into the Roaring Knight. That's an extra 5 Sonic points to this game. Speaking of characters, the lineup here is pretty solid. It's the same roster as the Disaster 2D minus Sally, with 2 new additions, Metal Sonic and regular Sonic. I feel like I never see a playable Sonic in EXE games. He's either trapped and betrayed for 1,000 years as X, or he's just not acknowledged whatsoever. Each survivor once again has unique abilities and passive skills, but now there's a lot more depth to how these skills work. For example, Sonic has a peel-out ability that not only lets him zoom away, but pick up a survivor. He also can't pick up Eggman because, I don't know, he's just really fat.
I mean, come on, come on.
Metal Sonic only has 1 life, so to make up for this, he has a self-repair ability. But if he self-repairs near Eggman or Tails, it'll increase how fast he heals up. Not only are these solid abilities that make the survivors stronger, but it's just so cool that all of their mechanics interact with each other like this. They could have easily just made the abilities one note, but the devs obviously put a lot of thoughts into how these abilities could function. And if you're wondering who my main is, of course it's Eggman. I mean, he can shield up, run away like a wimp, be bright purple, also be my sweet charming prince. Do I need anything else? And of course, with cool survivors comes a cool executioner, singular. There's currently only 1 killer in the game, 2011X, also known as X or sonic.exe. Besides being fast and having a basic attack, 2011X does have a few abilities up his sleeve. Invisibility, which increases his speed and lets him teleport to nearby survivors. A charge attack, which lets him fly towards survivors to stun and damage. God's Trickery, which forces players to remember how the blue and orange lines work in Undertale. And the big one, Rage Mode. As 2011X gets stunned by survivors, his rage meter here on the side fills up. Get that full, activate rage mode, and go crazy. You've got faster running, stronger attacks, you're stunned for less time. It's basically just a stats boost mode that you'll most likely need to win. Allow me to explain. In a game like Disaster 2D or even the original Disaster, the Executioner has the advantage. In Outcome Memories, as long as the survivors stick together, they will shred through Pink Eye Hall like it's nothing. I should know, I got picked as this bastard 4 times in a row and got bullied by a bunch of kids on Roblox. It was the most humbling experience of my life. I feel like once other executioners come out, it might not be this one-sided toward the survivors, but Cream and the gang can really beat your ass if you aren't careful about it. Oh yeah, that's another thing. There are still so many characters planned for this game. This video might even be outdated by the time it's posted, as Blaze and Silver are planned as survivors, with Fleetway Supersonic, Colossus from the Disaster, and a retake on Tails doll named Tripwire as executioners. Not to mention that the Outcome Memory staff has tons more planned for future updates. We're literally only in version 0.1. There are so many more things to look forward to. Hell yeah, we're getting Fang, and Infinite, and Shadow, and the Chaotix, and... Is that Honey the Cat? This might be the best game ever made. Who the hell am I, though? Am I right, guys? Look at them. The characters are part of the reason this game is so beloved, but it's also kind of because of how the characters look. The art style in this game is so damn clean. I mean, a lot of the official 3D models for classic characters look like... this. So to see these really well-made 3D models and original designs for classic versions of Sonic characters is great. These are also better than the current official anything models from Sonic. You know those things you want to put in your mouth that aren't food, like aquarium gravel or marbles? Yeah, that's these 3D models. They look so delicious. The executioners look great too, but 2011X just looks a little off to me. I'm not sure why. I'm not a big fan of his model. As for the stages, they're pretty alright. X's castle is probably my favorite, being this giant gothic vampiric castle. Not Perfect is pretty fun too. I like to jump off the ledge in front of the killer sometimes. They never see it coming. Green Hill is okay, albeit a little bland, and You Can't Run just pisses me off. I'm always getting lost in this map. There's so many corners where you can get your ass beat. And also, I got stuck this one time, and it was a little embarrassing. It's not a bad map per se, but it definitely is the least favorite of the bunch for me. But while I can nitpick other aspects of this game, there is one undeniable fact about Outcome Memories. The music is outstanding. The chase theme, the rage mode theme, the character themes, oh my god, the character themes. So one mechanic I haven't mentioned yet is Last Man Standing. When one survivor is left, the time limit increases and the survivor gets a certain buff. And each survivor has a special theme that plays during this segment, and they're all so good. Eggman's Cracked Empire, Metal Sonic's Dead or Alive, Tails' Friends No More. Oh, don't get me started on Friends No More. Congested editing ToadBup here. I just want to add that I re-listened to all the themes, and I'm not the biggest fan of the Amy one. I just want to have one negative opinion in here. Yeah, that's right, I could be negative. Watch me fucking kill this child in front of you. Now, the gameplay available currently isn't that much, but I find it a fun time to hop on and blast through some games for an hour or so. But if the base game isn't something you like, there's also tons of private server content that you can dabble with. On Roblox, you can make private servers for you and your friends, and in Outcome Memories, that comes with what is essentially creative mode. Not only can you mess with the game settings like time and who's the killer, but there's a bunch of goofy exclusive maps and characters. You could play as Baldi, or Frisk, or... oh dear god. Unfortunately, it seems like Dwight D. Eisenhower was removed in the last update. I did hear that Harry Truman would be replacing him in the next version, though. A lot of these characters are just silly gag characters or overpowered tanks, but it's a blast to gather up some friends and run around in Baldi's schoolhouse. And that's about it when it comes to Outcome Memories. There are some lore details about the characters in the game itself, but you know I'm no lore guy. 98XX is the furthest I'll go with that stuff. But I bet you're all wondering now, where are all of the solo endings? Funny story. So on social media in the past few weeks, people have been making a bunch of funny, silly solo endings based on Outcome Memories. Fun fact, these don't even exist. There are concepts for solo endings after Samuel Pastel's Metal Sonic concept went viral, but they currently aren't in the game. They're planned, but they're not real. There's something kind of funny about the arguably most viral thing about this game, just not being a thing from the game. There's a lot of work and passion put into this game. The graphics and music are incredible, the characters have a ton of depth to them and also are really fun to navigate around as. However, it's obvious that this game's still early in development. There's not a ton to do here. Listen, I could get behind a gameplay loop like this, but I can also see why someone would find the game boring in this state. The devs are planning new characters and maps and game modes and mechanics, so it's clear to see that there's more to come. But also remember that these are devs that are working for free. Think back to Sally Acorns and Hell. You can't expect there to be mountains of content for a game that just came out a few months ago. So when I see people complain that the new stuff isn't out yet or harass developers about it, it's so disappointing. Be patient. There are actual, breathing human beings working on this. It's not sonic.exe sitting on Roblox Studio for your gaming pleasure. Anyways, it's been a long time since I've been this invested in a Roblox game, and I can't wait to see what Sabi and Skittle Bunny and Ross and all of the other developers who worked on this game cook up next. Outcome Memories might not be the most mind-blowing multiplayer game out there, but if it keeps updating and maintaining the same quality, it genuinely might be one of the best Sonic horror games of all time. Except for the fact that you could turn off EXE chances. So that's why I had to play as him 4 times in a row? Turn your EXE chances on, you cowards. The handful of multiplayer Sonic horror games that exist are very conceptually similar, but somehow they still all manage to be distinct and fun in their own ways. Even The Disaster, which is no longer with us, was its own thing in comparison to 2D and Outcome Memories. It really does make me happy to see these games I've talked about still alive and thriving in their own ways, with active player bases and people still making content on them. Do you know what it was like to be a Sonic EXE fan in the mid-2010s? If I told someone I liked to play the game with the gray evil tails in it, I would have been melted into a fine stew. Now I see people not ashamed to make memes about Markiplier being in a Sonic EXE multiplayer game. This is the correct path in life. Keep supporting these games, be kind to the developers as they work on these non-profit projects, and continue to celebrate when people in the EXE community make cool and unique games like this that break the typical genre of what an EXE game is. So that's about it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did mention that there was 3 of these games that I wanted to talk about. Oh, you might want to sit down for this one. This is something special. Back in July, I saw this tweet from user DaOrangeBoy. Turns out that they decompiled the original sonic.exe game from Mist Crimson and made it multiplayer. So naturally, I DM'd them for a copy, got the biggest Sonic fan I know of, Salty DK Dan, and gave the game a whirl. It is literally just Sonic EXE, but with the addition of Blails. It's a blue tails that's slightly taller. I would weep out of pure beauty, but I dare not lose any of the magnificence stored in my body from this experience. So this isn't exactly a publicly available game. DaOrangeBoy just kind of tossed this together for me to try out, and I'm super thankful for that. Maybe they'll upload it one day, I don't know. They also included a level select and changed the art in the game to include Blails in it. I've been very vocal about not liking EXE parody games, but this is damn amusing. You just have to watch me and Salty play the whole thing over on my second channel. It's truly a sight to behold. I sure wish Blails was real so he could be my best friend. My good chum! A friend is a friend till the end of the end, that's forever and a day. Stay by your side, won't hear me say goodbye, come what may, 'cause that's what friends do.
Getting fit and funky, is that your desire? Get down and move it till you catch fire. Dance and shake the soul that makes you feel alive. Shake up your body, high five.